Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss Terminator 2 Judgement Day, which came out in 1991, written and directed by James Cameron. Ian, will you give us the synopsis for Terminator 2?
Arnold Schwarzenegger is back. 10 years after the events of Terminator 1, the T-800 has been sent back through time again on a mission to find John Connor. John, played by Edward Furlong, is separated from his mother, Sarah Connor, and the two of them must join up so that they can defeat this futuristic menace.
I never expected, even all the way back at the age of about 10 or 11, when I was aware that this film was released, that there would even be a Terminator 2.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember being given a choice back then that I could rent two films. Well, I could rent one film out of two choices. My choices were Predator 2 and Terminator 2. And someone had already spoiled Terminator 2 for me. If spoilers weren't even a thing then.
Yeah.
But somebody had already told me that the Terminator was the good guy in Terminator 2. And I was like, even 11-year-old me was like, what the fuck?
Chill out. Dickwad.
Well, in that case, I don't really want to watch that. Does the Predator turn into the good guy in Predator 2? No. I'll rent this one, please. And so I got to watch Predator 2. And I was like, screw Terminator 2. Eventually, I got round to watching it. And, of course, this is like one of the greatest sequels ever made. And arguably the best sequel ever made. James Cameron's kind of got a penchant for making really good sequels. We'll find out, I guess, with Avatar 2, 3, and 4, whether he can keep up that trend. But he still has kept up the trend, at least, with making the most expensive movies ever made.
Yeah.
Terminator 2, original budget was $12 million. That ballooned up to $80-odd million before spiraling past the $100 million mark. And, of course, that would carry on with True Lies, Titanic, and Avatar as being the most expensive and then in some cases highest grossing movies of all time. So we're dealing with a phenomenon here.
Yeah.
James Cameron and megastar Arnold Schwarzenegger, who also didn't think he would come back to play the role of Terminator, but everyone over the course of the distance between the two films kept coming up to him saying, "I'll be back." And it just became a catchphrase. And it was really Arnold who got the new film company on board because the company that owned Terminator 1 had gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
And they sold the rights to the new film company for like $5 million. And as soon as that happened, James Cameron was on board and the next script was already in development. Of course, he co-wrote the script with somebody else, but he also brought back the star, Linda Hamilton.
Yeah.
And, in the first film, she's the horror final girl who in this film, she's turned into the mega action star that we would know. And it's only really watching Terminator 2 again that I kind of realised that although the Terminator is the star, Terminator 1 and 2 is Sarah Connor's story.
Terminator 2. This film's amazing. I sat down to watch this film and purposely expected to find something to pick out and point at and go, this makes it not one of the greatest movies ever made. I couldn't find it. As soon as that music starts at the beginning, that slow orchestral, you've got the roads of Los Angeles with all the cars and the people in the park, and then there's the flash, and you're in 2029. And I sit there going, I'm in Terminator mode. I'm just in Terminator mode. You're just dropped right into the battle sequence. The battle sequence we talked about in the first Terminator that we always wanted to see expanded. Yeah, it's expanded.
Yeah, we get to see the T-800s, the full endoskeletons walking around, their full animatronics, blasting everything. We get to see the giant tanks coming in. We've got
hunter killers,
We've got optical effects, miniatures, practical effects, all taking place here. And I think James Cameron said they filmed this at like 300 frames a second, which is incredible. And it just makes this war look so different to wars we've seen in sci-fi. at this time, which is why everyone's gone, we want more of that war sequence. Like, we want the whole film. We want to see that panned out. James Cameron said in the original script they had the idea of watching Skynet send the Terminator back and then watching the Resistance send in their protector.
Yeah.
But he decided to cut all of that because it didn't really lend itself to the story so much.
It reveals too much too quickly.
Well, it does give to kind of the problem that they've sent back another Terminator and the Resistance have sent back another hero.
Yeah.
Now, like, how bad is Skynet? Really? Do they send back a Terminator and then just abandon their teleportation facility? Are the Resistance just twice over being able to capture Skynet at the moment of sending back a Terminator? Did the Resistance have their own teleporter?
Well,
how did they even know the exact time that they were sending back the Terminators? Was it modern day John would go,
like
it was this date, so you need to go to this time?
That's it. Like you said, ignoring the other sequels, that's what you don't realise at that point. Whenever you watch Terminator 2, the John Connor we see walking out that bunker with the binoculars.
That's the John Connor we want to see.
Yeah, but he only knows what he knows because of all the John Connors that have gone through the different iterations and time attacks, I suppose, by Skynet. So John Connor in the future knows where Skynet has got all of his time machines. And knows where he's going to send the Terminators back at that right point. And knows exactly who he has to send back at that point so that he exists.
Time can, yeah.
Yeah, in a weird paradoxical way. But we get that brilliant opening sequence. And then, for me, this is where the tone of the movie actually starts to be noticed that it's different to the original movie. The tone in the original movie, when Arnie turns up, is very dark. It's evil, I suppose, is the word I'm looking for. How would you use the word to describe a Terminator just arriving and knowing full well that it's setting itself up to wipe everything out? Cutting to Terminator 2, Arnie stands up and you're thinking, oh, I see him. He's ready to start killing everybody. It's when he walks into the bar and the barmaids are looking at him like, ooh, he's naked. I'm like, why hasn't he killed her yet? Why hasn't he killed all the patrons of this bar and taken all their clothes? Why is he walking up and asking this man in a kind of polite way?
I need your clothes, your boots, and your motorcycle.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you know, young John would tell this Terminator, you can't kill anybody. We'll get to that. And so it's kind of like, well, why didn't future John, when he reprogrammed this Terminator, just tell him now, you can't kill anybody?
I think he did, though, because the Terminator doesn't actually kill these guys.
He does not, no.
He badly maims them, don't get me wrong. I mean, that guy lands on the cooker, the other guy goes flying out the window, there's a knife to a shoulder.
Yeah,
but he didn't kill that. He could have killed that guy with the knife.
Yeah.
Easily. The tone is slightly different. And then to add in the twist of bad to the bone. That's the pinnacle point for me where I go, yes, this is not like the first movie. It's kind of got a...
It's much grander in its scale, and it's obviously appealing to a much wider audience.
Yes.
Now, interesting, Arnold Schwarzenegger also said he was reluctant to want to make Terminator 2 a PG movie and to have scenes that he didn't think the Terminator would do.
Yeah.
Especially after Conan the Barbarian's success and then Conan the Destroyer, it was made for kids and it killed the franchise.
Yeah.
He was worried this would happen with T2, although T2 has a massive appeal to all ages. I mean, we all remember as kids the toys.
Yeah.
Which were a huge success financially,
games.
and the computer games as well. And so this film did have mass appeal, although it's still very much aimed for its 18 rating. There is a lot of elements in here which make it child-friendly.
Yeah, well, I suppose you're aiming for that so that people can relate to the main character, John Connor, who at this point is 10? He's played by a 13-year-old?
Mathematically, he should be 9. On the computer database, he's 10, and he's being played by a 13-year-old actor. Yeah. Edward Furlong, though, this was pretty much a breakout role for him.
Yes.
I think it's kind of funny that his voice broke over the 8 months that they were shooting the film. And so in post-production, they literally had to redouble all of his dialogue, except for one scene, and then try and pitch it to make sure he sounds like a really young child throughout the whole film. But yeah, Edward Furlong, kind of, his career got ruined by drug addiction, essentially. And
he was a young film star. He made a lot of money through Terminator
massively.
2.
Terminator 2, I mean, American History X was a great performance, but I
Yeah.
think the last time I ever saw him was in Crow 4, like The Wicked Prayer.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that. We're talking about Terminator 2, and
Yes.
some of his scenes at the beginning are really well done. I love the way that the film structurally at the beginning says, right, here's Arnie, just beating up a bunch of guys. Here's Robert Patrick, who I'll get to in a minute, because I absolutely love Robert Patrick. Here's John over here, and here's Sarah over here. And you kind of sit there, you're wanting it to get into the action, and you're wanting all the crazy stuff to kick off, because obviously it's a Terminator movie. But part of me is just like, I want to see what led up to that. Why is Sarah in an institution? Why is John with foster parents? And the way that Edward Furlong would voice later on about how he was raised by Sarah for so long to fight in this great military leader, the leader of this resistance of all these Terminators and the world ending, and then people turning around to him and saying, "Sorry, son, it's all a lie." And you can see the emotion on his face, and you're like, "Yeah, but you've got your own Terminator. There's a Terminator running around for you right now." Linda Hamilton as well, locked up in the institution.
Such a transformation from
Yes.
the first film. And, all the actors in the film underwent military training, physical training, in order to get the physical appearance and make sure that they do the things that their characters should be able to do in the film, right down to lockpicking with a paperclip.
Nice.
Just to make it believable on screen. And it does. And Sarah Connor is such an amazing character. And Linda Hamilton, I think she was snubbed. James Cameron pushed for her to be at least nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actress in this film.
Yeah.
The only criticism I can give to her performance in this is maybe down to the narration that pretty much covers the whole film.
Okay.
The opening narration at in the middle, and then the narration towards the end seemed a little bit ropey and a little bit states the obvious.
Yeah.
But it still works. It still kind of emphasizes that this is her story.
Watching John with the machine, it was suddenly so clear. The Terminator would never stop. It would never leave him. And it would never hurt him, never shout at him or get drunk and hit him or say it was too busy to spend time with him. It would always be there, and it would die to protect him.
I also really liked the Dr. Silberman character, who's reprised, from the first film as well, who's keeping Sarah in this asylum. And even though he was aware of the events of the first movie, he's making a career off of her, which he kind of hinted at in the first film.
He would obviously reappear again in Terminator 3, but by that point it was being a bit of a joke.
It was,
he had that great exit in the first one, just as the Terminator walks into the police station, to his moment in this one, seeing Arnie and the T-1000 again.
Go!
Robert Patrick. This would be the first time I'd ever see Robert Patrick, and wow. The first time I saw Terminator 2, I hadn't been told the spoiler, but I knew that there was something off about Robert Patrick's character as soon as he turns up. There's something snake looking about him when he kind of slinks up to the police officer and just looks like a gut punch. But I always felt like it was a bit more than that, and obviously it would be later revealed to us what. But the way that he just transforms into this police officer, and then that iconic image for the rest of time, Robert Patrick in a police officer's uniform walking towards you, you'll have nightmares about that as well. Kind of more than I think than Arnie in sunglasses and a leather jacket.
I think in the film language is very telling early on. It tries to tries to throw you off as to which one of them is the hero.
Yes.
But you can tell that he doesn't have the same characteristics as a resistance fighter that we saw in Carl Reese. You know, that desperate, frantic, trying to get some clothing and find out where Sarah is. He's just very calm and calculated and precise in all of his movements and the way that he looks. That you can tell that he's not quite right.
Yeah.
But when he's talking to other people, especially when he comes up to the foster parents' house, he's really polite, he's really friendly.
Very well.
And he emotes very well. But then as soon as he's not having to emote anymore, you can tell that he is just scanning everything.
Yeah. His searching, like you said, with that foster parent moment, I like the way that you've got Todd and Jeanette, and Todd says, "Oh, there was a big guy on a bike here this morning. Anything to do with him?" And Robert Patrick kind of looks up and is like, "No, I wouldn't worry about him." And that puts me off even more because I'm just like, he's not even worried.
But the thing is like, would the T-1000 even know another Terminator was sent back to stop him?
No, but maybe he's already aware because Skynet is already aware. They've already played this game before, so Skynet's already aware that they need...
How did the T-1000 even get sent back in the first place? I'm pretty sure no metal could be sent through time unless it was covered in a human skin.
Well,
and we never saw, I guess, the T-1000. He turns up in Robert Patrick form, and he didn't need to assimilate it, so...
Well, you don't actually see that. You see the police officer drive up to the fence and sees the electrical stuff. And as he walks up to the fence, it's just a hole. And he's radio in as the POV camera kind of comes behind him. And that's when you first see naked Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
Now, the flesh thing, nothing metal can travel back. Maybe it doesn't count towards his actual pure liquid form.
Maybe, yeah.
And he just... he turns up in that puddle, immediately reassembles himself somewhere else, and then comes in. I'm not entirely sure. I still go on the theory that they might have just encased him in a big ball of flesh and thrown that in, and then the big ball of flesh broke out. But it holds more to the mystery, doesn't it, when you just see that hole in the fence?
Now, here's another odd bit of trivia for you, and this really now can only be included since the film sequels.
Yeah.
But in Terminator 3, we would find out that John Connor would get married in the future to a Kate Brewster.
Yes.
Who would be played by Claire Danes.
Yeah.
Now, people have kind of speculated and guessed and fan theorized, really, that when the T-1000 is searching for John Connor, he stops on the side and asks two girls where he might be. And the redhead is believed to be the Kate Brewster character.
Nice.
Because in Terminator 3, she says that John was in the same school as her.
Yeah.
And that they made out once.
They had made out once in somebody's basement. But John was supposed to come over and meet up with her the day after
the events in this film. So some people theorize that was her character then before T3.
Telling the T-1000.
Yeah, it's kind of like, you could be right. It's kind of fun to think about, I guess.
I love the whole infiltrating sequences with the two Terminators, especially when they finally get to the mall. Arnie's already spotted John Connor riding down the storm drains of Los Angeles. And so he heads to the mall. The T-1000's got the information from Kate Brewster. They've headed to the mall as well. Just the way you've got that shot of Robert Patrick on the upper level and the T-800 on the bottom level. And they're both kind of looking, but they fail to see each other. And in these thousands of humans, they're just looking for that one. And where is he? He's up in the arcade playing Afterburner. And Missile Command.
Yeah, I thought it was great that he was playing Missile Command because, again, Skynet's original program was to be Missile Command. And here's John Connor playing it. I thought, it's a nice little...
They're trying to defeat it as well.
Yeah.
The T-1000 walks into the arcade, and I love the way he walks around like, have you seen this kid? No. And John's friend kind of hides the fact he knows him and heads back to John. But as soon as the T-1000... gets an image of John Connor, he starts to throw in kids left and right.
Hey man, I think I saw that kid you were... Hey!
Yeah.
And that's another point, like I said, where you sat there like, he doesn't seem the good guy. Why is he throwing kids left and right? John scarpers off. and you get the meet-up in the corridor.
You just gotta love Arnie carrying those, the
The
roses.
yeah.
With the gun inside. Guns and Roses.
I never got that one.
Really?
I never got that one.
Get down.
I love the lockup, This is, James Cameron told the two actors, this is the first time ever in Terminator history that two Terminators have ever fought each other.
Wow.
And so when they lock arms and then there's that small pause,
Yeah.
that's the moment where both realize they're both Terminators and they're fighting each other. And it's like, you can only imagine, like, Terminator time, the thousands of thought processes going on inside those machines at that one moment that they lock arms before they start throwing each other through the walls and the chase sequence to the canals begins.
One of the greatest chase sequences ever filmed. I think this film actually contains 3 of the greatest chase sequences ever made.
Well, yeah. I mean, the whole first film was a giant chase sequence, and so this film just ups the ante in every way. It took them multiple takes just to get single shots for this sequence, like Arnie swinging the gun and shooting the lock off the gate and riding right through it. Just trying to make sure that Arnie remained in robot form whilst driving a bike, whilst reloading and firing a gun, and remaining a Terminator and not showing his panic and his fear as he's trying to do all these things at once, whilst James Cameron's bellowing at him orders and direction. There's a couple of moments watching it today for this review, watching it on a screen bigger than I had back in VHS, watching it in high definition. There's a lot of moments where I now notice when Arnold Schwarzenegger's stunt double is doing a lot of the work for him.
Yeah.
And also when later on in the film, when you can tell that it's an Arnie dummy. The practical effects I love. Pointing them out and going, I can tell.
It's like
the most severe nitpicking I can do. But hey, if I'm going to criticize CGI when it's overused, I will criticize when I can notice that it's the stunt double and not the real actor. Because those moments do take you out of the film.
Well, yes, but in this movie's defense, there are moments in CGI movies where we sit there for the first time of watching it and go, that CGI is terrible. We never did that with Terminator 2 the first time we watched it. The first time we watched it, every practical CGI, green screen, special effect that they put on screen was the most amazing tear-jerking moment of your life. The first time I watched Terminator 2, I always believed it was Arnold Schwarzenegger taking that leap off in the sewers and landing and driving and then grabbing John. And it does kind of burst your bubble. But then I carry on watching Terminator 2, 12th, 13th, 15th, 20th, 25th, 37th time of watching it. And I don't care. My brain goes, that's not Arnie. And my mind goes,
it's the Terminator.
It's the Terminator. I don't care.
Yeah.
Look how awesome that moment is. It's the same with me when he blows the tyre off of the T-1000's truck and he smashes into that wall and you can look into the driver's compartment and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, that's nitpicking. But in that brief second where the tyre's blown, Robert Patrick swings the wheel and it smashes into that wall and then all of a sudden explodes, I don't give a shit if nobody's there or not. There's a massive explosion and Arnie's getting his shotgun ready and that tyre rolling out. How many other people, first time watching Terminator 2, thought, why is he doing that? Why is the Terminator looking so tense at a tyre? You're going
to remember at the end of the first film, when the truck exploded, the Terminator walked out in his full endoskeleton. And so he's kind of waiting for the Terminator to come walking out. But he doesn't.
Exactly. When I was younger, I knew that there was something up before I knew what the T-1000 was, before the big reveal in a moment. That the way Arnie looks at that tyre, as the audience, you're thinking, why is he doing that for? And the tyre falls over and he puts the shotgun away and he rides off. And then you see the T-1000 walk out and you realise, or you would realise years later, that he could have been that tyre.
Yeah.
Taken on that form. And that's why Arnie was looking so tense. Oh my God, the T-1000 first reveal.
Yeah, walking out of the fire again, really.
You want to talk CGI? Yeah, bit ropey, not as great as today. Not in IMAX, not in 3D. in 1991 when this film was released, we didn't care.
No,
We were fucking terrified.
Yeah, that changed the landscape of films to come in terms of appreciating CGI. Just amazing. Obviously, Cameron working on The Abyss.
Yeah.
Worked on the face that came in the liquid water.
Yes.
Reflecting the main characters, and that was the technology that he really was waiting to develop for the T-1000 in Terminator 2. And there are moments when he's getting shot and you can see sort of the metallics, markings on him.
Tin foil, yeah.
The tin foil, and then it would turn to CGI and heal up. But it was the shots when he gets shot in the face and you can see through the bullet holes.
Yeah.
That was when you go, oh my God, this is next generation filmmaking. Now, you said tonally the film is different in terms of it's not outright horror.
Yes.
Like the first film. This is where Terminator would introduce comedy into what is now the franchise, where comedy has been pretty consistent throughout the Terminator films since this one. However, I will say that Terminator 2, it genuinely earns the comedy because it's not over the top.
Yeah.
Now, for me, the first time watching the film, you laugh out loud, is when John is explaining to the Terminator that he can't kill anyone.
Now! Put the gun down now! Get out of here! Jesus, you were gonna kill that guy!
Of course, I'm a Terminator.
It's like the Terminator is supposed to be blending in and
Yeah.
supposed to be doing his job and supposed to be protecting John, but he's incapable of perceiving how much of a threat certain people are.
Especially to John Connor at that moment. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And so I was like, you can't. That's when I realized that's the first time you laugh in a Terminator film.
The jokes had to be in there. And that first sequence where he says, moi, you're calling moi a dipshit. 13 years old, finding out you've got your own Terminator is absolutely amazing. But the comedy later on would come about when he kneecaps everybody.
Yeah.
He just has to kneecap everybody he comes across. And then even then replayed later on in Terminator Genesis when Sarah says, oh, he doesn't hurt anybody, but he does hurt a lot of kneecaps.
He'll live.
One of my all-time favourite moments as well with John and the Terminator just kind of bonding is when John wants to call the foster parents. The Terminator knows that this is a risk. There's a high chance that the T-1000's already made it there and has already dealt with them. But John's adamant, I have to find out. It's a human thing. You wouldn't understand. And so he gets him on the phone and he calls up Jeanette Goldstein. And you've got the two of them in the kitchen. Everything seems so nice. And this is quite off-putting, the fact that in a Terminator movie, that's usually the big sign that the Terminator's infiltrated and killed everybody. If everything is too perfect.
It makes me laugh. It really does to think that, the Terminator T-1000 kind of lost them after the Canal chase.
Yeah.
So it was like, right, I'm going to go back to John's foster parents, kill the mother.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to play mother for about 6 hours.
But he could have waited there for a short amount of time and then obviously taken the form. But it's the way that they start talking, and as soon as you hear the dog barking, now coming off the back of Terminator 1, as soon as you hear that dog barking, you know something's up. When the T-800 takes the phone and mimics John, just to throw the T-1000 off, her slinging her arm up against the wall. You don't hear it, or you don't see it, sorry.
It's off camera, yeah.
It's off camera. You just hear it and you're like, what's that? And I love that big reveal. Shit. This thing is efficient. In the special edition T2, there's a deleted sequence where he would go out to find the dog and realise that he'd been tricked. I'm kind of glad that moment got taken out. But as we're on the subject, there are quite a few special edition scenes that I wish had been left in the movie.
Ever since the director's cut came out,
Yeah.
I've never rewatched the theatrical. I would feel like there were too many important things missing now to rewatch the original version.
Yeah, there's a few that I'm kind of glad they did take out. The dog collar, for one. Some extended T-1000 moments at the end of the movie. But it's Sarah's dream sequence at the beginning when she's talking to Kyle. It's long, but it's what you need. It's what you need coming off the back of Terminator 1. Because watching the theatrical version, without those dream sequences in, you know that she still loves Kyle.
Yeah.
But you can't tell it because she doesn't actually say or do anything throughout the theatrical version of the movie. In the special edition, when she has that dream sequence with Kyle, after that moment, I still feel that there's a part of her that will always miss him.
Well, totally, yeah. I said in the first review, their love story is almost timeless.
Yeah.
Because of the paradox as well, and I just thought it was extra special because of it.
Yeah, so Sarah goes on her escape plan. The T-1000 has turned up looking for her. T-800 and John Connor have turned up at the front gate. And it all just kicks off again into another mad chase sequence. The reaction from Sarah as she goes around the corner and the T-800 steps out of the elevator. Absolutely fucking terrifying. And it's her slow motion no as she runs. And then the reaction of John coming behind and saying, "Wait, Mum, hold on, he's a good guy." Dr. Silberman's reaction when he sees the T-1000 attempt to step through the gate. I mean, he gets through the gate and then you realise that the gun... It's got to allow that. So cool. Another little cool comedy moment. And the T-800's just wiped out all the orderlies and is telling Sarah to follow him if she wants to live.
Come with me if you want to live.
The way the T-1000 falls on top of the elevator and just starts stabbing through the top. You're just like, what the fuck? How are we going to stop this thing? You could barely stop a T-800 10 years ago. How are we going to stop this liquid metal advanced motherfucker? All the way up to the way he jumps on the back of the car. Yes, you can see that it's a silver head-painted dummy holding onto the back of the car as it comes out. But I love Robert Patrick's, the way he pulls himself up and he just starts smashing that back window. I am going to criticise that moment just a little bit. It's a great chase sequence. The suspense is there as the Terminator is smashing the back of the window to get to John. Yeah.
I was like, if the T-1000 really wanted to get in that back seat with John, he would. Because later on in the film, we can see that the Terminator rides the motorbike through a window to the outside of a helicopter, turns into liquid metal form and just flies right into the helicopter. And I'm like, but that's later on. Quickly.
But that's later on.
He could have easily done it but he didn't. And so I'm just like, if he doesn't...
Well, first
not trying hard enough.
How do we know he could have done it there? I mean, we know he's an infiltrating, adapting Terminator machine, and half an hour later on to the movie, he might have formulated that plan of force and power smashing through the windscreen of a helicopter. It's not like I'm arguing, but if he'd got into the back of the car and killed John Connor there, it'd been over.
I just think the T-1000 is just death. As soon as he's close to you, you're dead. And they're running away from him the whole time. And so you kind of have to have him get there. But considering you see him dispatch others so easily, and yet when it comes to John, it's kind of like, I just can't.
Yeah.
Just can't. And there's a few moments where I'm like, the T-1000's not... He's not efficient enough. Obviously, if he was, he would kill John.
Yeah, the film would be over.
Yeah. There's a couple of moments where I'm just scratching my brain going, I don't know why he made that choice or why he's doing that.
Do you think James Cameron did that? While he was writing Terminator 2, he just kept getting to points where the T-1000 kept killing John, so he had to rub it out and start all over again and rewrite the scenes. Like, and he kills John. Oh, fuck.
So yeah, but you have to find really good ways in order to keep John safe.
Yeah. They've managed to escape from the T-1000 again, much to Gary's dismay. And it brings me to another brilliant special edition scene, which the first time I saw it, I was so glad that they had kept it out so that I could see it in its all its glory. Because in the theatrical version, obviously, the film is just brilliant. It just travels at a breakneck pace of action. But then in the special edition, it slows it down into these little minuscule moments that the characters have. And it's the moment where they're fixing each other up in this abandoned garage. And they start talking to the T-800 about him, if he can learn to be more efficient as a human. You know, he explains that Skynet kind of resets the switch and lets them go out and adapt on the fly. Which brings me to the T-1000, why he doesn't do that thing, because he's still adapting from his time travel. And it's the moment where Sarah, John, and the T-800 are planning on taking his CPU out of his head. The fact that the special effects are brilliant. I mean, I can't really tell if it's a prosthetic head that they're looking at from the back with the head open and Arnie's in the mirror, or if it's just Arnie sat there with this latex thing on top. I don't know. But it's brilliant. It's the way that they remove the CPU and Arnold Schwarzenegger just stops. He just kind of holds one position. It's the way that Sarah is ready to destroy the CPU and then ready to justify it to John of why. How hard is it to kill one of these motherfuckers? You do not want to be on the bad end of this thing. Even though, funnily enough, he's just seen one which is an advanced, almost slice him up in the back of the car. But no, don't worry, Mum. And John's reaction to Sarah. How's anybody else going to listen to me if my own mum won't do it?
You don't know what it's like to try to kill one of these things. And if something goes wrong, this could be our last chance, so move!
Look, Mom, if I'm ever supposed to be this great military leader, maybe you should start listening to my leadership ideas once in a while. Because my own mother won't. How do you expect anyone else to?
And I just love the way that it bonds them. I always had a kind of problem with the theatrical version where the bond came too easily. They all just kind of accepted that these were their roles and this was what the path that they were traveling down. Where, like I said, in the special edition, they flesh out some of the characters a bit more. And so from this moment on, Sarah's kind of like, I'll accept this T-800's here to help us, but the first moment he screws up, I'm blowing his head off. And John's kind of like, okay, Mum, I get it. And if it's a bad call, I will accept that because I'm supposed to be making these heavy calls.
I think it's great having that sequence in there because it adds more lore about Skynet and about the Terminators and how they function. And so, yeah, I think that insight just adds another layer to the film. And as you've said, adding in these sequences does break the pace of this film quite substantially. And there's just lots of dialogue back and forth. The Terminator explaining to Sarah about Miles Dyson, the creation of Skynet. We have sequences where John and the Terminator are fixing the car, and she explains all of the previous men that have been in his life because of his mother. We have scenes where they're tooling up and getting weapons. It's a great sequence.
I found it really hard to find a difficult scene to get through. But the Enrique sequence, like we said, we've already said the tone is off. This was a happy family moment, I felt. Which, yeah, it's the fact as well. I mean, I know the Enrique part is mainly there for her transition. Her transition from escaped mental patient to badass gun-toting Sarah Connor.
But again, also seeing this family, she has that nightmare one more time, which is also the spark to go, I'm not going to let nobody else die because of Terminators.
Yeah, I just don't know if this whole sequence could have been done without the Enrique family. You know, if she could have still found her hidden spot out in the desert with all of her weapons, she could have still carved that thing and had the dream sequence. I suppose the point I'm making is in this film, if there is one thing that does get kind of grind me in Terminator 2, it's James Cameron's "let's all get along" speeches. Like you said, with John and the Terminator at one point, oh, we're never really going to make it. Well, it's in your nature to destroy yourselves.
We're not gonna make it, are we? People, I mean.
It's in your nature to destroy yourselves.
Yeah. Major drag, huh?
I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's a little
I
bit
get it.
preachy. Yeah.
Then you've got the whole baby sequence with Enrique and the Terminator's looking at it like, this is a small soldier. What am I supposed to do with this? You know? Breaking it up as well with Miles Dyson. I love the Miles Dyson character because he's not so evil. But then with his extended family moments.
Oh, yeah.
With his wife telling him, look, you promised the kids that you'd take us to go swimming. Why do you love this machine so much? It doesn't love you as much as us. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I totally get it. The machines are bad. Okay. You don't have to tell me continuously because I don't know. I get it. But I want to see it. I want to see what's coming. And from this moment, after the Enrique family, Sarah has now decided she's going to go kill Miles Dyson. And like I said, we've already seen all these nice family moments for us to establish that Miles Dyson isn't the bad guy. He's just an everyday man doing his job, learning his craft, and he just happens to come across a fucking CPU unit chip from a time-traveling machine.
And he was told to ask no questions, so he kind of didn't and just got on with the job. And yeah, and ends up inadvertently creating that machine. I love when the Terminator is sat explaining to him everything that happens, and he's just sat there like, I think I'm going to throw up.
Yeah. I've always seen Sarah as kind of the savior at this point whose mind changes. You know, she goes out there to kill Miles Dyson and then opts not to.
Well, in a way, she becomes a Terminator.
That's it. That's what I just realised for when I was watching this review, is the way that she's glasses on, hat on, gun loaded. She's just stone-faced. She drives all the way out there. She sets herself up. She unloads. She just happens to miss him a couple of times.
There's a lot of coincidences I find in the Terminator 2 film.
Yeah. But it's the way that when she walks into the building and the way that she just starts walking around, shooting at everybody, and then she sees the family there. She breaks down in tears and realizes that it's these little families that mean more than the bigger picture. The T-800, yes, slices his own skin off of his arm and tells Dyson that he's responsible for 3 billion deaths, I believe it is. That's a heavy weight to take.
We mentioned it already that Sarah Connor has this nightmare of the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And it's really when we get to see the full extent of that nightmare before she goes to Dyson's place. You know, we saw a glimpse of it earlier in the extended cut. But, you know, watching Sarah Connor from, you know, unaffected by the Terminator timeline sort of in the park.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just that white blast. Everyone getting down on their knees and just the first blast wave going through everyone, just everyone on fire. You know, Linda's skeleton being formed up on that gate. The screams. You know, the blast of everyone, then the ash cloud just wiping everyone away. When you see the miniatures, you know, of LA, basically, the blast knocking over the buses in the buildings. Scientists have said that this is the most accurate representation of a nuclear blast ever put to film. And, you know, watching this sequence, it's going to leave a mark with you. So much so that even when I watch this film on television, some of that sequence is edited for television.
Yes.
Because it is extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, the way the bodies just kind of burst away, you know, the fire hitting everything. I remember back in 97, I believe it was, I'm pretty sure it was August 29th. I remember my mum coming up to me saying, how are you feeling? And I'm like, I'm fine. She's like, well, good, because Terminator 2 Judgment Day didn't happen. And I'm like, what? That's how much of an impact this film had, that people were waiting for August 29th, 1997 to come around to see if the bombs would actually drop. But of course they don't, because after telling Miles Dyson about his effect that he's about to have on the world, he decides, I'm going to quit Cyberdyne today, and I'm going to quit it in the best way possible. I'm going to take my new friends here inside, and we're going to blow the place to Kingdom Come. I actually believe that this moment, from the moment they walk into Cyberdyne and they start to break in to steal the arm and the chip and to lay their explosives, before the SWAT team break in, It's one big, massive action sequence.
It is, and again, I have a problem with the logic to the film just a little bit.
Right.
With the fact that they're wheeling around, office chairs with records and data on them, and they're piling it up into one corner, and they're like, and then at one point, Linda goes, "Oh, don't worry, we'll blow that up with C4." And I'm just like, wait a minute. All of this stuff will be taken up with a blast of C4 anyway. Why are you wasting all this time? Are you just waiting for the police to turn up?
They've got all those barrels of chemicals as well, haven't they?
Exactly.
And the blast has to be
into
big
the end
enough.
of the sequence, you see that blast at the end, and they were worried about stuff. Everything went up in that blast. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah.
So it kind of is a little bit annoying when you think of it that way, but at the same time, this sequence is played out with every single shot from here to the end of the film. You can't take your eyes off the screen because it is action, chase, tension, and some comedy moments thrown in there.
Yeah.
I'll take you off the police.
Hey, wait, you swore!
Trust me.
And I can only imagine, the police force are looking for some fucking payback. They've waited for 10 years to catch this guy who just wasted a whole precinct. Now they've got their chance. And just the image of Arnie in that window with the minigun.
That's a damn minigun!
I've realised in this movie as well, something that I think has been missing with the sequel Terminator movies after, and it's the fact that in this movie, John is very computer literate.
Oh, yeah.
We'd seen at the beginning that he's quite skilled with computer games. He manages to break into an ATM and steal a bunch of money from it, and he's actually pinnacle at the end to break into the locker to get the keys out so that they can steal Skynet's
after the security
remains.
override, silent alarm was triggered.
But it's something that's not brought up in the later Terminator movies.
No.
I know that they're aiming for more action in the later Terminator movies, but I would feel it would actually play more into his character if he was quite skillful with the machines. Because I believe it's him who actually reprograms the T-800 in the future to send it back. So to drop that after this movie, I feel is a bit of a waste.
But the SWAT team eventually catch up with Dyson, and they blast him as soon as they open the doors.
Yeah.
He gets riveted with bullets, and he's kind of pinned down. And I love this even. It's also one of the most memorable moments from Terminator when he's just holding the trigger, and he's just like, I don't know how much longer I can hold this. And then we get the chase sequence where the T-1000 on his motorcycle flies out the window, breaks the glass into the helicopter.
Oh.
A throwback to Terminator 1 with the get out. The pilot's like, yeah, all right. Throws himself right out. And and the chase sequence where they're in the armoured truck, the helicopter flying in. It's just amazing.
It's just amazing.
One of my favourite sequences is when you realise that the Terminator, the T-1000, has 4 arms. He's got 2 on the stick, and he's got 1 on the gun and the other reloading it. Catching it at a glimpse, you'd be like, something doesn't look quite right there. But it's done and gone again.
Yeah.
But when you see it, you're just like, that's just great. The T-1000 can just adapt and evolve to whatever situation he's needed. I have another continuity-ish problem here when the helicopter does finally smack into the back of the truck, and the very next shot, the front of the helicopter's fine again as it kind of smashes into the road, and I'm like, the action sequence is so sweet that you blink and you miss it, and it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I'm just nitpicking because it's not really much else criticism I can give to the film.
Well, see, I found that as well. This end sequence is Terminator 1 sequence. Just turned up to 12.
Oh, yeah.
But more than just kind of vaguely familiar. It is very, very close. You have them crash. They get into that smaller van and they're being chased by a Terminator in a large semi-truck. The semi-truck crashes. The hero manages to get it to crash and then fully damages the Terminator inside it so that we can fully see it in its full-on form.
Hasta la vista, baby.
The moment the bullet shatters into the body, the way that after this movie, sound effects in cinema had to be at its absolute pinnacle fucking best, so that you could hear that ping, and then the little fragments hitting the floor, and then the blub, 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 as it all starts melting and then reforming itself. And that, I feel, is another reset moment for him. You know, because we will see that once he's reformed, when he puts his hand on stuff, the patterns.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that you didn't like seeing those extended shots of the T-1000.
Yeah.
I do, and I don't like it. I think it's great having it in there because it then shows that the T-1000 is vulnerable. His liquid metal is mimicking anything he touches almost instantly without him having control over it.
Yeah.
And when you see his feet, the liquid metal is kind of puddling at his feet, and it just shows that he is vulnerable, I guess, and that if he takes repeated damage to the extent that he just did, that he would not be able to hold himself together entirely. And throughout the rest of this final sequence, you see him sort of self-checking, sort of a rippling effect to make sure he keeps his image intact.
Yeah. The tension starts to build again, and like you said, you're sat there like, how the...
I got another problem with the end of the film.
But...
Now, throughout the film, we have seen that the T-1000 can imitate anyone that it touches, and it can also imitate the sounds of anyone. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Why, when he has Sarah Connor pinned with his finger, does he ask her to call to John? Why does he not kill her? I mean, every person that Terminator's in contact with, he kills them. Why does he need her to call out to John? And then, in the very next sequence, he turns into Sarah Connor and calls out to John. And leaves Sarah Connor alive.
Because if he killed Sarah at that point, you'd be complaining that it was just the Hicks death sequence in Alien 3 all over again.
I don't know if I'd be complaining. I'm complaining more
at that moment,
sequence because the T-1000 is a Terminator and should have killed her.
Yes, and if it was an 18-rated movie and the Terminator, the T-800 and T-1000 have been killing absolutely every single person in their way in this movie, then at that moment, yes, there would have been no hesitation. He'd have probably cut Sarah's head off and thrown it in the lead and then taken her form.
Yeah.
But the way the film had been played up to that moment, the fact it's a 15, there were all those family elements that you were kind of hoping that Sarah and John would always get back together at the end of the movie and rectify their relationship, and that all this wouldn't leave a massive tragic fucking scar tissue in their mind for the rest of their life. Killing her at that point just wouldn't work. You know? And yeah, I know it does get silly, but at the same time, the T-1000's got her and is asking her to call to John because he hasn't adapted to her yet. It's like Arnie says, the T-1000 can only change into stuff that it has physical contact with. At that point, he'd had physical contact.
Yeah, he touched her in the elevator during the escape, during the mental hospital.
Yeah, I suppose he did stab her.
So he already had made contact with her.
Yeah,
so
and at the same time, why couldn't the T-1000 take on the form of Arnie?
Yeah, as well as, I guess Arnie is a lot bigger than him, so he can only cover the mass of his own proportions, despite the fact that he can blend into the floor, you know, and the walls.
Yeah.
Like,
and that fat security guard was just a little bit out of shape for him, but maybe shorter and fatter. Nitpicking. I mean, the fight sequence between the T-800 and
here's another
T-1000.
problem.
Oh, well.
The T-1000, I would only assume, is smarter than the T-800. I'm pretty sure that a T-1000 would be quite familiar with the mechanical workings of a T-800 per se, right?
Yeah.
How and why does the T-1000 leave the T-800 alive multiple times during these fights? Why does it not terminate the Terminator? It thinks it does, or at least we believe it did. And then the Terminator goes,
because it's
backup power.
Because
God, that was written into the script.
Because in a funny way, even though it doesn't actually have it, it has an ego. He believes himself to be so perfect that even after he's trapped, he's already, beaten up the Terminator a couple of times. Now he's trapped his arm. and he just walks off. What's the Terminator going to do? Oh, he's going to rip his own arm off. That just makes it easier for me to beat the shit out of him, doesn't it? When he comes back the second time, he beats the shit out of him, stabs him through the back, rips off his power, and to all intents and purposes, to the T-1000, he is dead. Because the T-1000 scans him and must be like, he's got no back, he's not powered up, and the only backup supply he's got is like minimal. So what's he going to do? He'll just come back and I'll whoop his ass again. It's the third time that he doesn't realize that the Terminator has been the T-800 has been reset, and so is open to more illogical thinking, I suppose, to be able to defeat his opponent. To the T-800, all he needs is that one grenade and that one shot, which he gets at the very end of the film when he comes up that cog. It's still absolutely fucking amazing because everything had been built up to that point. The confrontation between John and the two Sarahs. Brilliant idea using Sarah Connor's twin sister.
Oh, yeah.
Sarah getting the shotgun out and blasting the T-1000 continuously, and then having no more shots left and realizing that the shot that she had dropped when the T-1000 had stabbed her would be...
There's definitely an ego thing here because, again, the T-1000 fully repairs himself and decides, you know what, I've got Sarah and John right here, I'm going to kill you both. And he's like, actually, I'm going to stand here and taunt you some more. Now, here's another interesting thing, is what sort of sounds is that T-1000 making when it dies? I never even expected a Terminator to make...
liquid
well, it
metal
sounds
screams.
like an alien screaming.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
Just, the combination of all the different voices of all the people he's assimilated. And then it cuts into the biggest tearjerker since Kyle died in the first movie, where the T-800, after throwing in the arm and CPU from the first Terminator, says, "You have to destroy me too."
It's over.
No. There's one more chip.
But it's just the whole "I know now why you cry."
Yeah, there is another inconsistency.
Yeah.
When, the Terminator asks John, why do you cry? And then if you cut back to earlier in the film, where Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I have detailed files on human biology.
Yeah.
So we should know why humans cry. But it's more of the question as to the emotions. He knows about biology or the biological aspects, but he doesn't really know necessarily how they function in relation to feelings. And so what he's saying at the end is, I understand feelings in a way.
Yeah.
And so he understands that he has become a surrogate father and has learned to love John, not just as his protector.
Do you think that he understands feelings because he's actually getting a little one of his own as well? Because it's like when they pull him off that cog and he says, I need a vacation. That's the Terminator pulling a joke.
Totally, yeah. And fitting in.
Because at that moment, he's accomplished his mission. He'd already said earlier on that if he'd failed his mission,
I would say that his mission is still incomplete at this point. Looking at the big picture again, his mission will only be complete when there are no traces of Skynet left.
Yeah.
And so he himself is now the only conceivable threat that could be used to make Skynet in the future.
Well, yeah, but his mission was set that he was sent back to protect John from this new Terminator. This new Terminator has been destroyed.
Yeah.
So what more can he protect John from? Yeah, okay, there's still the threat of Skynet, but they, at this point in the movie in 1991, they had closed this chapter. Cyberdyne was destroyed. the T-1000 is melted, and now the T-800 is giving up his life.
And yeah, it is an epic moment where he's slowly being lowered down and the music's playing almost triumphantly as he goes down. And yeah, granted, everyone will talk about the real physics of this, is that he would not just easily lower into the molten sort of lead, that he would actually kind of float on the surface and that he would be burnt for quite some time before the skeleton would eventually slowly...
Doesn't look as cool.
It wouldn't look as cool, and you definitely wouldn't get the final hand, thumb raising shot. And it is one of the saddest moments in film. It's one of the saddest death sequences in film, especially if you're, an 11-year-old boy watching this film, and you even though watching it for the first time, you're just like, I didn't want to watch it because the Terminator is a good guy, to getting to the ending sequence and now that Terminator is sacrificing himself. Oh my God, it is an instant tearjerker. Now, we mentioned that this was supposed to be the end of the Terminator franchise. James Cameron filmed an ending where we have a very old Sarah Connor sat in a park many, many years after Judgment Day should have occurred, and she explains that it hasn't. But audiences and the studio were just like, no, James, this actually doesn't work. It doesn't fit the tone of the rest of the film. Plus, we want to make sequels. Yeah. So leave it open. And so it kind of ends with Sarah Connor's voiceover just saying, it's kind of funny how a Terminator really got to understand the value of human life. I hope humans do someday. And it's like, yeah, okay, preach it, Cameron. You preached it heavily at the end of The Abyss. And it's kind of a bit weighted here. But when I look at those comments from Sarah Connor's perspective, I'm like, granted, I take it.
The unknown future rolls toward us. I face it for the first time with a sense of hope. Because of a machine, a Terminator can learn the value of human life. Maybe we can too.
So, we're going on for quite a while. It's no surprise that there are so many memorable moments in the film. For me, the nuclear blast, that nightmare dream sequence, every other nuclear blast in film is now to be compared to the Terminator 2 Judgment Day blast. Hasta la vista, baby. One of the greatest lines in cinema. The effect of it, of the T-1000 exploding. I love the Michael Biehn dream sequence, seeing Kyle Reese back. I felt his impact throughout the rest of the film.
Yeah.
The T-1000's death and Arnie's death, of course, very, very memorable. I guess those are the highlights of the film for me, but rewatching the film now, there was lots of little moments that I'd not really picked up on before, and that is the evolution of the Terminator becoming more human or becoming more alive.
Yeah.
When it's just the sideways glances he gives to John in the car.
Yeah.
Or the trust me line, just the learning to smile. All of those little moments, they're a bit goofy and they're a bit funny, but they really start to show the change in the character. And I also give credit to Arnold Schwarzenegger as well, who always in every scene had to ask James, how more alive is the Terminator at this point? Obviously shooting the film completely out of order.
Yeah.
And, it kind of plays to the strengths of Arnie playing a robot. A lot of people, as critics especially, would say that he is a cardboard cutout of an actor. This role's perfect for him, and having the little hints of humanity come through just cements the Terminator as a character for all time. And my love for the relationships between humans and machines in film, also born out of this film.
Terminator 2 favourite scenes. I mean, where do you start? Where do you end? Just like Gary said, even all of the big massive scenes are amazing. All the little emotional scenes are just as brilliant. Any of the chase sequences are amazingly done in this movie. They are just, like I said, 3 of the biggest chase sequences done in cinema. I love the conversations between Arnie and John. Every moment, every minute in this film is amazing. But my all-time favourite has to be that garage sequence. The mix between special effects and the acting from the characters, the way the camera works, the way the editing is. James Cameron just had this little moment. Just had this little moment in the film, and it just cements everything Terminator right in there for me.
I, of course, highly recommend Terminator 2. It's one of the best action movies ever made. It's one of the best sequels ever made. You know, this is one of the only sequels in film history to ever win multiple Academy Awards. This film has stood the test of time. It has some of the best quotes, some of the best scenes, and some of the best characters, and an icon through film. This is an amazing film that will be rewatched again and again and again. And even though you can start pointing out when it's a dummy, when it's a stunt actor, and when it's CGI, it doesn't matter, you know, because it's your love for the film that just keeps you coming back anyway.
I definitely recommend Terminator 2. Trust me.
Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Stay here. I'll be back.